In this video I'm going to show you how to improve your UI design with one system. Welcome to the Ready Designer 1 channel. And how we're going to learn it is we're going to do a small challenge, which is to design a hero section for the Spaced project, which is about space travel. In the Figma file, which I'll also share in the community, I've grabbed some inspiration, which is Virgin Atlantic. So here straight away we have the form, and also Airbnb is another really nice inspiration because they got great design. And here they start off with a very small search at the top, but when you click into it, it expands and it gives you more options. And we're going to use this style for our hero section for the Spaced company. So what I've done in Figma, I've just typed out the different text, the labels and the text. So to save time, you can just copy this to this frame here. Bonus challenge is just using auto layout straight away, just to see how easy this is, because you're going to get a lot of benefits, which I'll share at the end of the video. In a recent video, which is a spacing scale, and this is incrementing by 2, 4, 8. So remembering this kind of scale on the top of your head is going to make it easy for you to space out elements. So you won't have to think too hard. We're going to copy these two because we can then replicate the rest. So Command C, we're going to go to our blank canvas and Command V. Now one quick tip to do is these are both 16 and they are spaced mono. Now the label is not as important as the actual text here, the items, so I'm going to bump this up to, let's say, 20. So you can be a bit more generous, so let's say 24. So now we are playing around with the type. That's just a very quick improvement. And now we're going to select both and then Shift A, and now we have an auto layout and it's vertical. We're not putting any spacing at the moment, so I think this is pretty simple. And then what we're going to do is we're going to think about the spacing on the top and the bottom. So again, looking at Airbnb, you can go in and just try and measure everything, but we're going to roughly guess by using our spacing system. So here you can see there's a lot more spacing on the left and the right, and on the top and bottom there's less. So we are going to do something similar to that. So I'll just zoom in. Here we are going to look at spacing. So to visualize this a bit better, we're just going to give this a very light gray. So let's say, depending on your eyes, so I'm just roughly going around there. So we know that the left and the right padding has to be greater. So let's say 24. And on the top and bottom we can say 8. Okay, so that is quite a nice visualization of that. And we might want these to be fully round. So again, we're looking at Airbnb where they got that nice rounded look. We don't have to do that, but why don't we just see if we can just replicate that. So 999. So you can see here it probably needs a bit more space on the left and the right. So again, I'm going to go right up to 40. So now we've got that nice space. Can we be more generous? Let's say 12. So I'm incrementing by 4. So now we're starting to get that really nice space. Now these two, the line height is set to auto. So we can set this to a solid of, let's say, 100%. Let's try that. And this will also be a solid of 100%. So now this is solid, and well, when I mean solid, it has a line height of 1 and a line height of 1. Now what we could do is have a spacing between these. So let's say 4. So I think 4 is great. So now we quickly done one field, okay, using our spacing system, and we're kind of guessing the numbers, but we're using our scale. So now we've got a good, something quite similar. So now we can actually make this into a component, but we're going to keep it simple. We're going to call this field. And all we're going to do is just Command D. So Command D another 3 times. should we say 4 times, because we're going to need a button as well. So let's do it again. So now we've got 5. So now the magic is, if I select all, Shift A, they're all vertically stacked, but I want this to be horizontal. So now this one here is actually going to be a button, and this is going to be called search. Now for this last one here, we actually want to label that button, so you can see how quick that is. And we actually want that, should we have that to fill container, and then a line in the center. Nice. So now we kind of created the form pretty quickly. Okay, now the other thing to do is we want to have a border on the outside. So you can see we've got this really nice spacing here. So let's see if we can replicate that. So I'm just going to reverse this and say, actually let's go to black. I'm going to reverse this. So I'm going much bigger than Airbnb, because we are doing this for a space travel company. We want to feel spacious. So here we got this nice dark color button. So we can now say, okay, we want to have a stroke. Let's do it from the center. And now what we want is to have a spacing all around. So let's have a guess. Let's say 4 and 4. And here we want to replicate the rounded corner. So now you can see how nice and sharp that is. I mean, we're not even looking at, and you can play around with these values. You could say I want more space, I want 8. Even 8 is pretty nice. And you can say between these I want there to be a space of 8 as well, right? Yeah, this is just how nice and sweet it is to control. So one thing we should probably do is just let's remove the grays. So I'm just going to hide it like that, and then let's change the labels. So I'm just going to copy these across. Let's see how quick I can do this. Probably not fast enough. Ooh. So these are actually copying the line heights. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to type them in. So if I was to just center that, you can see we've created it's just pretty nice and simple. Let's say that they are active on one of these. This gray probably could be a lot lighter. So again, this is not about a color contrast, but you can see the active state. And I mean that we did that pretty quickly. Now the bonus to this is, can we make it flexible and vertical on a mobile phone? So I'm just going to do this where you can see it is not responsive. So I'm going to then hit enter. Now one thing to consider is the space. So you can imagine we don't want these to be fluid, right? We don't actually want that to happen, because on the web it is not going to grow. So we need to give these like a fixed width. And what fixed width will that be? Well, again, we can use the 8-point grid system, or increments of 4, 6 or 8. So I'm going to say 96 width. Now that's too short, so I'm just going to times that by 2. So now that's giving us, we've got Moon, Mars, Jupiter, we've got a nice space there. So we can just replicate that width on all the rest. So 192. We could probably be even more spacious, okay, because this is where you start thinking. So 192 looks too small for that. So I'm just going to add 40 to that, because again this goes into the 8-point system, and just add 8, right? You can just see we need a bit more space. So 240 looks like the width of the fields. And I take a lot of inspiration from Tailwind CSS as well, because they have a nice width system, and this can be converted to rem, so you can see how it's starting to shape out. Okay, and that is pretty nice. So I'm just going to command E that, And again, the challenge is, do we want that button to be fixed? Well, here you can see this is not fluid, so I'm going to hit enter, and now I'm going to say, well, actually we still don't want it fluid, do we? Because we still don't want it fluid. Oops, something funny's going on there. Because we want these to be a fixed width. So, however, if we're going to go on a mobile, we do want it to stack. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to hit the F key, I'm going to go to phone, let's say max. Now let's copy that, paste, and now I'm going to just make it go vertical. Okay, so it's going to go absolutely crazy like that. And now what I'm going to do is just start adjusting things. So here that probably doesn't make sense to be fully rounded, so I'm going to just say 8, and I'm going to give this a fixed width of whatever width this is, which is 428. So 428, a line on the left. So we could probably have, now we can have more spacing, or we don't have to have more spacing. So here I'm going to just see if that's fluid. That is not. So that's fine. So here I'm going to hit enter, and I want these to fill container. Hit enter again, so we select all the labels, and we want that to fill container as well. So this one, I actually want that to be in the center. Oops, so I hit enter to go and then center that. Now you can see this is a bit too tight, right? But if I just try this out, you see it's still not fluid, and I know why. I learned from the last one. But this one, we can definitely be more spacious. So let's say 20. You can see it's just nice and quick, right? I could say 40. Now we're starting to space things out really nice. I don't even think we need the border anymore, so I'm just going to hide that. You can imagine this aligning from the bottom. So this is looking really, really consistent. Now, if we do truly want to make it responsive, we actually have to take this outside. Let me just command that frame, drag it out. Let me fill it with white. So now if I was to do that, you can see that this form is fluid, but not within the frame. But we kind of built our very own component there. So now we got a nice and fluid container. Just one more thing to try out. So this doesn't work. So here, if I was to constrain it to hold shift and to the right, let's see if this works. Nice. So now it's working within the frame. At the end, where you get the basics in, have a solid foundation, really nicely spaced out search, how it looks on mobile, and then what you can do is just start playing around with the background image. So these are images that I used in the previous video just to see how they look. So you test it out. You can see on a lighter background I just took away the borders. This is Earth in space. Here is just black and white, really clean. Now where it gets interesting is you can play around. So this is a iOS 16 wallpaper by Fons Mans that you can find in the Figma community, and you can just test out this in different backgrounds. You can see how legible and clean this is, you know, so adaptable. This is another one by Fons Mans, and this is the amethyst, if I pronounce that right. You can see the colors, the vibrancy, you know, as long as it's legible and clear, then it is nice and sweet. And there's a lot of things you can do, such as you can start playing around with background blurs. Let me just see how this looks. It might look really bad. So you have to then give a low opacity. So here you can see this is another nice little technique that you can do. Just change the opacity, but this has to be readable. If you find this content useful, please leave a like. Let me know in the comments what you think about this very simple method. You're using auto layout, you're using a very simple spacing system, and also you're using some reference from the best sites out there.